I was happening, y'all. It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and I've been keeping y'all up to date with as much information as possible. And I still have so many other things I want to talk about, like should the Commanders go after Mike Vrabel after he got fired from the Titans? Should we go after the recently fired defensive coordinator of the Giants and everything that's going on with him? I still want to do a full breakdown of Josh Harris's press conference that he had a couple of days ago, all of that, but I just keep getting backed up with more important news taking over as priority, man, because now we're hearing that Ben Johnson is leading the betting odds for the next Washington Commanders head coach, and very trustworthy and close to Josh Harris and the Commanders organization reporter John Keim predicts that Adam Peters and Ben Johnson, that could be a very likely pairing for us. And that's literally his prediction. If he was forced to put money on it, those would be the two guys that he would predict that we're going to hire. Adam Peters as the front office president of football operations guy, and Ben Johnson as the head coach, and those guys running the show. And if we end up with that combination, you could argue that's best case scenario all the way around. I'm super excited about that. So we gotta break all of that down. We gotta break down Ben Johnson. I'm gonna go further in depth on Ben Johnson than I have in previous videos where we've talked about him, because I feel like there's just no other better time. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's talk about how productive his offense has been, how he's gotten such greatness out of two rookies immediately, and why being able to get that much out of rookies immediately bodes very well for him potentially going to a new team in the Commanders and having to get greatness out of a lot of guys immediately, not even just rookies. Also, we got to talk about Adam Peters and the great job he's done for the 49ers and how that can translate over here with us. So, before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. And man, I remember that day when Aja was that muddy. Oh man, I was so mad at her. I know that's completely off topic, but I'm just looking at the bottom left of the screen. I see it as the same time y'all are seeing it while I'm recording. Man, that day, boy. But man, make sure y'all stay tuned for all of the content, because again, like I said, I have so many video ideas. I'm still working on a breakdown of the Commanders 2024 opponents, because that's come out, but I've been so backed up with so many other things, and I've just been so busy even just beyond my YouTube channel that I still haven't even gotten a chance to do that. I'm working on a mock draft that's basically like after we went and got Bob Myers and Rick Spielman mock draft and all of that type of stuff. I have so many things I'm working on, 2 mock drafts at the same time, where another one where we trade back, but y'all just got to stay tuned for that, because I'm just so backed up on so many videos and ideas. But man, without further ado, let's go ahead and get to this video. Let's get it. All right, so like I said, the Washington Commanders' next head coaching odds via Sports Betting AG, they have Ben Johnson number 1, 3-1 odds. Eric Bieniemy 6-1, highly doubt that. Jim Harbaugh 6-1. Bill Belichick 9-1. John Keim has already come out and said that's literally not happening. Not that it's unlikely to happen. It's like literally a direct no. Again, John Keim is arguably as trustworthy as it gets when it comes to Commanders news, because him and Nikki Javala, maybe you could throw some other people in there, their goal isn't to be first to get, like, to be the first ones to get information out. Their goal is to be the most truthful and the most reliable. So when John Keim says something, especially when he says it definitively, because he's one of those guys that knows how to word things correctly. If he doesn't know for absolutely sure, he doesn't have a trustworthy source, or like if Josh Harris didn't say it directly to him, or at least somebody close to Josh Harris didn't tell him directly, he'll say, I believe, I think, I've heard, there's a rumor. He'll say stuff like that. When it's something definitive, we are not getting Bill Belichick, that's definitely something noteworthy. Then you have Bobby Slowick, another top 3 candidate in my opinion, that's 9-1 odds, and Mike Macdonald, another one of my top 3 candidates. Literally, Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, and Mac Macdonald are my top 3 candidates for head coaches. And the fact that all 3 of those guys are in the top 6, and again, Bill Belichick is pretty much impossible at this point, and I highly doubt Eric Bieniemy, and I don't think Jim Harbaugh is that likely as well, in my opinion. Then you have Anthony Weaver 10-1, Todd Monken 10-1. That's my Georgia Georgia Bulldog. If you bring over Mike McDonald as the head coach, you could potentially snag Todd Monken as an offensive coordinator and then go and get baby diet Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. You never know, man. That's just something fun to talk about and dream about. And the odds just keep going all the way down. They have so many coaches on this list. It's crazy. And then again, like I said, John Keim, he didn't say this is definitively happening. He didn't say this is something he's heard from the organization, but there has to be a reason he felt like it was worth the time to even say this in his podcast. He said that he predicts that the next pairing for GM and head coaching for this team, going from Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera, we will transition from there to Adam Peters and Ben Johnson. That's his prediction. Basically, if he had to put money on it right now, that would be his guess. He's not saying that that's going to happen. It was nowhere near as definitive as Bill Belichick will definitely not be the next head coach. He didn't say that about Adam Peters and Ben Johnson, but from everything he's hearing from people close to the situation, maybe he's heard, Josh Harris's opinion on certain things and who he prefers. Maybe just because he prefers somebody doesn't necessarily mean he'll get that guy. Maybe that guy is not willing to take on this job. Maybe somebody else is more willing to, and maybe Adam Peters says no. Maybe Ben Johnson says no for something as simple as we're not offering them enough money. You just never know. But if John Keim is saying that, again, with as close as he is to the organization, that means that that's arguably more than likely Josh Harris's preference. Will it happen? Not absolutely sure. But again, the fact that he's predicting that is very interesting. Now, of course, with Ben Johnson, let's go ahead and talk about him first. We'll talk about Adam Peters later in the video for the second half of it. We already requested an interview for him like immediately, along with the defensive coordinator for the Lions, Aaron Glenn, as well. But with the way that the rules work, we will not be able to interview him for a while. I'm gonna break that down towards the end of this Ben Johnson section of this video before we move on to Adam Peters and explain why. Basically, we can interview potential GMs right now. We were already doing that. We started doing that yesterday, January 9th. I'm recording this at 3 a.m. Wednesday, January 10th. We have some lined up today, as in Wednesday, January 10th as well. We're knocking those out. And that's, first of all, good thing for us, because hiring and getting the right GM / president of football operations is far more important, and it needs to be the thing you do first. You hire that guy, and then that guy goes against the head coach, or at the very least has the biggest say, or at least a large say of who we bring in as the head coach. So everything is going in the chronological order that it needs to be going in. Get the front office guy, then go get the head coach, and then everything will fall into place after that. So again, we are not allowed to interview Ben Johnson yet, but we wanted to go ahead and let Ben Johnson know, let the Lions know, hey, we're interested. As soon as he's available for interviews, we're pouncing on that. And it's going to be a while for that, so stay tuned. But, man, Ben Johnson, there's heavy competition for him, man. There's gonna be several teams trying to get his play calling, his game planning, all of that, man. This hiring cycle is about to be insane, especially after he declined a lot of head coaching offers last cycle. He has so much leverage, especially over the Panthers, who he's like confirmed declined against. The Panthers wanted him. He was like, nah, I'm good. That looks like a disaster waiting to happen. And then a disaster super happened. They were the worst team in the NFL, and you can't even say they were tanking because they didn't even have a first round pick. That belongs to the Bears. They were legitimately that terrible. David Tepper looks like the new worst owner in the NFL. Ben Johnson, I guess, saw that coming a mile away and was like, I'm good. I'll wait till next year potentially. Maybe, you never know. Maybe he chooses to stay with the Lions and not become a head coach. But I think after being arguably the top head coaching candidate 2 off seasons in a row, 2 hiring cycles in a row, he's probably gonna finally be convinced, like, yeah, let me go do my own thing. Let me get full control as a head coach of a team and really run the show and get more credit and all of that type of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised. But hey, man, this guy's only 37 years old, and he started coaching back in 2009. He finally got into the NFL in 2012 with the Dolphins, and how he's worked his way up to where he is already. Again, only 37 years old. He's another one of those young offensive-minded prodigies. The Bobby Slowicks, the Mike McDonalds, the Sean McVays, the Kyle Shanahans. He's one of those guys. Arguably my very favorite candidate. Bobby Slowick and Mike McDonald are in my top 3, but I would argue for me personally, Ben Johnson is my number 1. Shouts out my boy Mark Bullock over there in the UK. He does great work. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him everywhere that he does things. And go subscribe to his Substack. It's worth every penny. He does film sessions on Commanders players, potential coaches, guys that are already here, all of that type of stuff. He does great film session work for everything Commanders. Guys we may hire, guys that are already hired, players that we may draft. He looks at future draft picks potentially. He's probably going to do, more than likely going to do breakdowns of all of the potential quarterbacks that we may be looking at number 2 overall. All of that. Please go subscribe to him. And he did a full breakdown of Ben Johnson's offense. He shows all 22 footage with all of the lines and everything, showing you the route concepts, breaks everything down, the good, the bad, the complicated, everything. And in the conclusion of this really long, beautiful article that I wanted to read like 5 times and got me even more excited about getting Ben Johnson than I already naturally was based on the research I did, he concluded Johnson does have a great system and has shown great flexibility to adjust his offense to his specific personnel and find ways to build individualized packages for his best players and intertwine those packages together to really stress opposing defenses. If Johnson were to end up as the next head coach of the Commanders, provided these are 2 things he has to make sure that because these are the only 2 unknowns. Can he prove his leadership capabilities? Can he be a leader amongst men? And can he connect with players? Outside of that, when we're talking his scheme, Mark Bullock says that he would be very excited to get Ben Johnson at the very least as an offensive mind, a play caller, scheme, quarterback developer, all of that type of stuff. It would be a home run hire at the very least for those things. And it's basically just N/A right now to see if he can completely run an organization as a head coach. I believe he can. Again, we've seen so many offensive minded head coaches go out there and do it. Why can't Ben Johnson when he looks like one of the smartest minds in the NFL right now at only 37 years old? I mean, he could be that type of guy that attaches his name to the Commanders, and now he's our head coach for the unforeseeable future type of thing, where we just run a dynasty, the Adam Peters, Ben Johnson dynasty for the next 10 plus years, win a couple of Super Bowls, go to the playoffs every year type of thing. I truly believe we have that type of potential if we are able to bring those 2 guys in. Now let's talk about what Ben Johnson has done specifically for the Lions. Well, let's start with the tight end position. Sam LaPorta as a rookie had 889 receiving yards this season. That's 5th out of all tight ends in the NFL. George Kittle was number 1, Travis Kelce 2nd, Evan Ingram. I've been trying to tell people, man, it was the Giants more than it was Evan Ingram. There was some injury concerns, but he went to the Jaguars, and now he was 3rd in the NFL in receiving out of all tight ends. TJ Hawkinson was 4th, and then Sam LaPorta was 5th. And David Njoku 6th. He's one of those guys that it was just like, man, if he could just stay healthy and get at least some relatively consistent quarterback play, he can ball out as well. But also when it comes to yards after catch, he was 8th out of all tight ends. Under total touchdowns, he was number 1 with 10. Fantasy points per game, he was 3rd, and expected fantasy points per game, he was 5th. So he even outperformed projected fantasy points per game based on whatever data player profiler uses in their metrics and all of those type of things. But also, man, look at this all 22 footage right here of this play call that he designs to get Sam LaPorta open for an easy touchdown. Jared Goff, still great throw, but this is more Ben Johnson than anything else. Sam LaPorta is a great player. Jared Goff is a pretty good quarterback, but this all 22 play right here that you're looking at versus the Saints from the Lions is completely Ben Johnson. I mean, imagine the Commanders with play designs like that, man. That's beautiful. And I just love one thing that Ben Johnson does very well that all of the elite offensive coordinators do is that they set up plays throughout a game. Like, say in the first quarter we run this play, see what look we get. Okay, we'll come back to that in the third quarter because we know how they react to certain things. So we're gonna either do the same thing and take advantage of that or do something else to take advantage of that. That's something he's shown throughout the season, but also to dive even deeper to get to an even higher tier of elite offensive coordinator and play design and play calling and stuff like that. One of Sam LaPorta's 45-yard touchdowns was set up from a game 3 weeks before that. They ran a play, they saw, they wanted to show defenses, okay, watch out for this, and then they used that against their opponent 3 weeks later to where they were worried about that thing and they changed something else and then implemented it in a weird way. It's so complicated. It's just some high level stuff that, man, Ben Johnson could explain it way better than I could. But just know that Ben Johnson is basically playing chess and not checkers, dog. I'm telling you. And man, when it comes to the tight end position, the reason I'm talking about that first is because we need help. Please, when it comes to Pro Football Focus ratings, Logan Thomas finished the season with a 56.1, John Bates a 47.4, and Cole Turner with a 62.1, who barely played, and even when he did play, we never threw him the ball, which I don't understand why. I feel like he has the talent to be at the very least a pretty good receiving tight end. I don't know why Eric Bieniemy just completely ignored him a lot of this season. Sam Howell, Eric Bieniemy, that combination, Cole Turner just didn't exist. And he was balling in the offseason, so I don't know what happened. But we need big help on the tight end position. But like I always say, the tight end position, yeah, talent matters, but offensive coordinator matters the most. I love Sam LaPorta. He's balling, but it's more so Ben Johnson than Sam LaPorta. Same thing with George Kittle. It's more Kyle Shanahan than George Kittle. Kyle Shanahan is scheming George Kittle open. George Kittle isn't out here like Travis Kelce, juking people out of their socks, one-on-one man coverage getting open on his own. A lot of these top tight ends, Mark Andrews, a lot of these guys, now they do a great job executing the play call, making the catches when they're supposed to, getting yards at the catch and things like that. That's what Sam LaPorta, George Kittle, and Mark Andrews are great at. But none of those guys are Travis Kelce. The offensive coordinator matters the most. So that is why I'm saying that I'm projecting it. If we were to hire Ben Johnson as a head coach, he could potentially find his next Sam LaPorta. Because Sam LaPorta is great and all, but I trust Ben Johnson to find another Sam LaPorta. I'm not even going to sit here and argue that he's already on the roster with potentially like Amani Jones, Amani Rodgers, my guy, Cole Turner, or even if we actually end up keeping Logan Thomas, because you can cut him and save more cap space than Dick Cap that will be left behind, or John Bates. I'm not saying the guy's already on the roster, but I'm confident in him and Adam Peters to be able to find that next guy in the draft, Ben Johnson to find it once again, or even Adam Peters with George Kittle. Adam Peters was part of the George Kittle decision. I'm pretty sure Ben Johnson was part of the decision to take Sam LaPorta. I feel like those two together can at the very least find another guy relative to that. I'm not saying they have to necessarily draft a Brock Bowers, an elite guy. I think they could take a pretty modest guy like a Cade Stover from Ohio State that I'm hoping we can grab at like the 4th round maybe and turn him into the next Sam LaPorta. Boy, we need it. We need some tight end help. Our young quarterback that we're going to end up drafting needs tight end help because that's a quarterback's best friend. It always is, man. A dual threat tight end changes the entire offense. When a tight end can touch the field and the defense doesn't know if you're running the ball or passing it, you know how much that opens things up. It makes things easier for not only the offensive coordinator, play caller, whoever, but the quarterback. That's big time, man, because I'm gonna keep bringing it up. When Jeremy Sprinkle was on the field, teams knew we were running the ball because we better not throw it, and we definitely better not throw it to him, because even if we do, defense is just gonna leave him open. We're gonna use our 11 players and all of our resources to stop everybody else. Just let Jeremy Sprinkle do what he does. He's gonna probably drop it anyway, and even if he doesn't, we can rally and bring him down before he gets any extra yards. And then when it was Jordan Reed and or Vernon Davis on the field, they knew we weren't running the ball, because if we do, we better not run it their way, or that play's getting completely obliterated. So a dual threat tight end makes it to where defenses are always on their toes. They're not able to basically predict what we may potentially do and narrow down our potential options of play calls for that specific play just based on the guys on the field. Can we please have an offense where the guys on the field don't automatically signal to defenses what we're trying to do? The majority of the battle is strategy and mental in football. Yeah, talent matters. Yeah, athleticism matters, but it's a strategy based game. This game is as close to checkers as it gets in sports, and for a defense to already know what you're gonna do just because of the tight end you have on the field puts your offense at an immediate disadvantage. We need to hit on tight end, but most importantly, we need to hit on offensive coordinator or offensive minded head coach, in this case in Ben Johnson, because a lot of these tight ends out here that are balling out is because of their offensive coordinator more so than anything else, especially in Ben Johnson's case. Now moving on, running back wise, we have a pair of running backs if we re-sign Antonio Gibson and keep him with Brian Robinson to where we can get some things going. And boy, Ben Johnson unlocked that running back room this year, man. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are the first duo in NFL history to both produce 1,000+ scrimmage yards and 10+ rushing touchdowns in a single season. The first time in NFL history, people. And remember, Jahmyr Gibbs played 15 games and David Montgomery played 14, and yet they still combined for 24 touchdowns and came 7 scrimmage yards shy of 2,400 yards. That is insane, bro. Jahmyr Gibbs had 63 rushing yards and 5.2 yards per carry and 0.6 rushing touchdowns per game. David Montgomery per game was 72.5 rushing yards, 4.6 yards per carry, and a 0.93 rushing touchdown. So combined per game, they had 135.5 rushing yards, 4.9 yards per carry, and 1.6 rushing touchdowns. We need every ounce of that. Ben Johnson, make sure you bring literally that with you if we hire you as a head coach. Please imagine Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson if we re-sign him under Brian Robinson's leadership and scheme, man. I really could see them going out there and doing those exact type of things. Brian Robinson showed us he could be a complete back in the NFL. Work on that fumbling. I don't know what was going on these past couple of weeks. Maybe he just stopped caring and gave up. I don't know. But at like halfway through the season, Brian Robinson was top 5, at worst top 8, and a lot of advanced running back stats like yards after contact per carry and receiving stats and things like that. Like he was like literally a top 5 running back halfway through the season when you're looking at all of the important running back metrics, not just surface stats, but the things that like the smart people look at. I don't remember the exact stats, but I remember Brian Robinson surprised me. Like he was really balling out this season before the wheels fell off on this whole Commanders offense under Eric Bieniemy, Sam Howell, and all of that type of stuff. I believe in those guys, and Antonio Gibson has ridiculous athleticism. We just got to worry about that fumbling problem as well. And then on top of all of that, just looking at the entire offense and how productive they were. Like, how did he allow everybody to eat? David Montgomery, 1,015 yards, 13 touchdowns. Gibbs, 945 yards, 10 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 1,515 yards, 10 touchdowns. And we were struggling to get Terry to 10. 1,000 yards. We barely got him there. Amon-Ra St. Brown is 1,500 yards, while David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs are totaling more than 2,000 yards rushing. And in total, rushing and receiving almost 2,400 yards between the two. And on top of that, Sam LaPorta almost had 900 yards himself with 10 touchdowns. I mean, when we're talking about too many mouths to feed, how's everybody going to be productive? Ben Johnson has unlocked that. He has the answer to that riddle. He has found a way to get everybody involved and to make everybody happy. Everybody's getting contract incentives. Everybody's reaching their goals and milestones. You get 1,000 yards. You get 1,000 yards. You get 10 touchdowns. Again, to remind you, all 4 of those guys I just named, 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, all of those guys each had at minimum 10 touchdowns. Come on, dog. And then when it comes to Pro Bowl voting, Jahmyr Gibbs was number 4 out of running backs. Sam LaPorta was number 4 out of tight ends. Amon-Ra St. Brown was 7th out of wide receivers. He even had Jared Goff 8th out of quarterbacks, and David Montgomery was 8th out of running backs. Come on, bro. That's the type of stuff he was doing, man. And with running backs, David Montgomery 13 touchdowns, Jahmyr Gibbs 11 touchdowns, Amon-Ra St. Brown 10, and Sam LaPorta 10 touchdowns. The Lions are the second team in NFL history with 4+ players each recording 10+ scrimmage touchdowns in a single season. They joined only the 2013 Broncos, who had 5 players each with 10+ touchdowns, which is insane. But Ben Johnson just did something this year that has only been done once before in NFL history. I mean, this is ridiculous stuff here, y'all. I don't think y'all understand. And mind you, Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam LaPorta are all rookies. It took them just one off season to get them involved and have them activated and get max potential out of these guys. So it's the scouting, it's the developing, and the play calling. Those are 3 very important steps. You miss any one of those steps, in this operation doesn't work. You have to hit on all 3. Ben Johnson has clearly done that. That immediate success is very important. So I want to emphasize the fact that those are rookies, how that can translate to us, and why I'm super optimistic about our potential future as the Commanders if we're able to grab Ben Johnson, is because that means that we can hit the ground running and he'll have us looking like something serious this season. Like 2024, we won't have to wait for like a year or two rebuild for our offense to finally get to cooking. Ben Johnson is shown with his work with rookies and free agents that have been brought in that he can get immediate success out of guys no matter what. So we should look forward to progress and development and being better than what we were in 2023 rather immediately. I'm not saying he's going to have us as one of the best offenses in the NFL immediately, but we're going to be good at least. We're going to matter, and we're going to stress out defenses. And speaking of ranks and stats and all of that, the Detroit offense led by Ben Johnson, him running the show, we're 5th in points per game with 27.1, 3rd in yards per game, 5th in points per play, and 3rd in yards per play, 11th in third down conversion, 3rd in red zone scoring percentage and touchdown. So whenever they were in the red zone, they were scoring touchdowns at the 3rd best clip in the NFL. And they also were 3rd in touchdowns per game with 3.4. That offense was cooking, and again, Ben Johnson was the majority of it. Now just imagine what he could do with a quarterback that he handpicked himself, because I feel like it's going very under the radar how good he got Jared Goff looking out there this season. Like, that trade looked pretty crazy initially to a lot of people, but Ben Johnson got Goff really looking fine out here. Like, imagine what he could do with a quarterback with more natural talent and a higher ceiling, or even just something as simple as more mobility. I'm not calling Jared Goff trash, but just imagine with the ceiling of like a Caleb Williams or a Drake May or a Jaden Daniels, what he could do with that. Come on, man. The sky's the limit. But when it comes, and I already read these rules when I did a previous video a couple of days ago, but the NFL does have new hiring rules. As of May 2023, the NFL instituted a new hiring rule to improve the interviewing and hiring process for head coaches. The change was made to make the process more fair, thorough, and inclusive. It especially aims to advance the league's anti-tampering policy, which is applicable through May 31st, 2024. The resolution included 2 changes. The first change is that teams cannot interview a head coach candidate who is employed by another NFL team until the 3rd day after the conclusion of that team's Week 18 game. This primarily protects teams that did not qualify for the playoffs or teams that earned a first round bye week. For teams that play in the wild card round of the playoffs, coaches cannot be interviewed until the following Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on which day they play their game on, Saturday or Sunday. The second change states that no in-person interviews are permitted with candidates employed by other teams until after all wild card games have ended. Before the end of the wild card games, in-person interviews can only happen with candidates employed by a team hiring a head coach, or candidates not currently employed by the NFL, which is like a Jim Harbaugh coming from Michigan, or maybe somebody out there that's just coming straight off the couch rather than currently coaching an NFL team this past season, or currently coaching a team right now that's in the playoffs. So for those of y'all that were confused, there you go there. That's why we have to wait on interviewing any potential head coaching candidate, including Ben Johnson, for a little while longer. Just hold on. Now let's go ahead and move on to Adam Peters. Well, we can start interviewing them as of January 8th. Which is cool. And there will also no stipulation on random social interactions when 2 parties just happen to occupy the same space in a way. So when we played the 49ers, when they beat us 27-10, Adam Peters had to be there. Josh Harris had to be there. What's to say they didn't just shake hands? Nothing illegal about it, nothing tampering. We happen to be in the same place. We're supposed to be in the same place. Allow us to be in the same place. But let me talk to him on the side for a little bit. Let me chop it up with him. Let him know, hey man, we're coming for you. You're one of our top targets and probably our number 1 target. He's my number 1 target. I love Alec Hallaby, love Ian Cunningham. I love a lot of these potential targets we're getting at GM, but I think Adam Peters is probably my number 1 the more and more I think about it. And I'm about to explain why. But first of all, again, John Keim said on his podcast that his prediction is for us to pair Adam Peters and Ben Johnson to basically be a dominant duo to lead this team into greatness. But also, Matt Burrow via Grant and Danny on 106.7 The Fan, and I know a lot of people aren't fans of 106.7 The Fan, but this is not them. This is Matt Burrows coming on to their show and talking about this. He said, quote, a lot of people I've talked to think that this is going to happen, that Adam Peters is going to be the guy that the Commanders hire to be their next GM, unquote. So there's a lot of smoke, and when there's smoke, there's usually fire. And I mean, we already scheduled that interview. That already happened last night, because again, right now it's 3:41 a.m. Wednesday, January 10th. We were scheduled to interview him last night, as in Tuesday, January 9th. So I'm assuming that's already happened. And there's already clear interest from us. The fact that we prioritize getting them in the first day that we're scheduling interviews. He may not have been the first interview exactly, but he was a part of the first day. Maybe there's just some scheduling differences. He probably had to fly all the way from California, so that's probably why he was one of the later ones today. That has nothing to deal with whether he was the top priority or not. Again, he was one of the day one guys. We made sure we got him in immediately day one of the GM search and interviews. But even on his end, and why there may be strong interest in the Commanders from Adam Peters' way, because he is one of the most sought after GM candidates out there, and he turned down interviews with the Titans and the Cardinals last year. And then other teams have already requested interviews with him. There's already reports about that, but none of them have been able to confirm and schedule an actual interview date and location and place and all of that type of stuff. We are the only team right now that have not only a confirmed interview day with them, but also that have already interviewed him. I mean, that's big. But even if we hadn't interviewed him yet, just say his interview was due Wednesday, for example, we are still the only team that has scheduled an interview with him that he's accepted an interview with. Everybody else, he's either completely rejected all out or he's telling them to wait. So it sounds like we're a priority to him as well. Not only is he a priority to us, but it looks very mutual, and I'm super excited about that. And of course, there's a lot of connections between us and him. First of all, he went to UCLA with Bob Myers, who we recently hired to basically come in. He's the guy that built the great Warriors dynasty. I did an entire video breaking him and Rick Spielman down while we hired both of those guys. That's a strong connection there. That's really interesting. A lot of people thought that he went to the same high school, and it's really crazy because their high schools have very similar names, but it's not exactly the same high school. But they did go to UCLA together. There's a strong connection there. Also, very randomly, he has a pretty strong connection to Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. So if we miss on Ben Johnson, and if the Commanders organization as a whole is interested in Bobby Slowick, Adam Peters may be that last step that if we end up hiring him as a GM, president of football operations, whatever the title ends up being, Bobby Slowick is probably more likely because Adam Peters is in the building. And I'm happy regardless, but of course Ben Johnson is still my number one favorite. Now, also moving on, just to give you a quick little background, 20 plus seasons of NFL experience, 3-time Super Bowl champion, and former director of college scouting, man. This guy is different. And just to let you know why I feel like Adam Peters will be a home run hire, I feel like it's fairly obvious, to be completely honest. Like, I don't even feel like I really need to dive into too much detail here. Just like I said in my previous video when I talked about Adam Peters, like yesterday or the day before that. I mean, just look at the draft picks, look at the free agency moves, look at the trades that they've done, including the one for Christian McCaffrey, where a lot of people questioned it, a lot of people doubted it and downplayed it, and look how that's turned out. And even Brock Purdy, to be able to find a guy in him that, even though I don't feel like he deserves the MVP candidate hype that he's getting, he's still at the very least doing a good enough job keeping this high-powered sports car on the road and running straight. Because there's a lot of quarterbacks out there, including me. I couldn't go out there and keep the 49ers as a division leader right now. I wouldn't have won the division as the quarterback for the 49ers. So he's still doing something right. He's not the MVP candidate that people are putting him up to. But, hey, man, he's doing a good enough job that even though this team is full of all pros, left and right, pro bowlers all over the place, great coaching staff, all of that type of stuff, Brock Purdy is still doing his thing. And for them to get a guy like that, not only in the 7th round, but literally the last pick of the draft, and this is only, his second season? And he's doing it after he's played in 26 games, started in 21 technically. It's not even like he's this, late last pick of the draft, but he's a seasoned veteran. He's been doing it for 5+ years, so it makes sense. Like, this guy has not even started a full 2 seasons yet technically, and he's still doing what he's doing. Again, I'm not trying to put him on a pedestal. I'm not trying to even act like he's an MVP candidate, but at the very least, he's good enough. And to find somebody good enough, I mean, it seems like he's at the very least somewhat of an improvement over Jimmy Garoppolo, who was handpicked to be the next guy after Tom Brady from Bill Belichick himself. I mean, that's pretty impressive as the last pick in the draft now, especially with all of the quarterbacks that were taken before them and what they're doing and what they're looking like right now. And don't even, I mean, like I mentioned, this super high-powered sports car, all these Pro Bowlers and all pros, most of them were drafted, scouted, and developed by this team. Come on, bro. And Adam Peters has a lot to do with that. I'm telling you, and the best way to win over Adam Peters, to be completely honest, is to give him the exact same power that his dog, John Lynch, has had with the 49ers. Make him the president of football operations, GM, whatever, and then let him handpick his own assistant GM like how John Lynch did with him. John Lynch was running the show and brought in an assistant GM in Adam Peters. Bring Adam Peters over here to run the show and let him handpick his assistant GM if that's what he wants to do. And it seems like we may actually be doing that because it keeps when I see announcements of Adam Peters and the Commanders, Josh Harris being interviewed and all of that stuff, they don't say GM, they say head of football operations position, which is a big promotion. Him going from the 49ers to us is a big promotion. But at the same time, technically John Lynch did go from GM to a slightly higher position. He technically got promoted to president of football operations, which means that Adam Peters could technically get a promotion going from assistant GM to full-blown GM just by staying with the 49ers. But I think he'll probably want as much power as John. I think he wants to skip 2 steps. Like John Lynch is going from GM to football operations. I think Adam Peters wants to skip GM, go from assistant GM to basically be lateral to his boy John Lynch for the 49ers and compete directly against them, same conference and all. But either way, man, a lot of people are speaking very highly of him. Don't even take my word for it. If you don't want to hear me talk about him, listen to other people, man. An NFL agent in the Athletics annual agent survey, it's a lot of agents speaking and basically voicing their opinions about all of the GMs around the NFL and stuff like that. They said about Adam Peters, quote, "I think that if you're a team looking this year, to put it bluntly, you would be dumb to look anywhere else." An NFL agent said, "I think he is the best in the business," unquote. And continuing with the article from The Athletic, Ben Standig wrote, he said agents also voted Peters among the league's talent evaluators and front office leaders they trust the most. Rare mentions for non-general managers. Again, this is an assistant GM, and he's being pinned up against and voted in the same pool of guys that's GMs, president of football operations. This is an assistant GM, and people like him more than people who already have the power that Adam Peters is looking for, that already has that promotion that Adam Peters is trying to achieve. He tied for first in future GM to watch category with Kyle Harley of the Saints and Nolan Teasley of the Seahawks. Again, and all of this is from NFL agents that have voted for these things. These are not fan-based, these are not player-based, these are NFL agents, and that's very important because those are connections, man. You have connections with NFL agents, that vastly increases your odds and chances of being a really good free agency destination, and we haven't been that probably since my lifetime as a Commanders fan. So for us to potentially Adam Peters brings so many great things with him, but the fact that NFL agents love him and say that he's arguably the best GM candidate out there and arguably one of the best elite minds, even when you include guys that are already GMs and head of football operations, that goes a long way, man. If you're in the good grace of NFL agents everywhere, that only makes your job easier and better, man. As far as us making trades like how the Eagles are doing and signing free agents to good contracts, they're not coming over here to tax. Because when the Commanders did, or Redskins, Washington football team did get top free agents, they would tax us. It was that kind of tax where it was like, yeah, I'll come there, but because y'all are so miserable, I don't have my agent doesn't have a good relationship with your GM or whoever's running the show, I'm gonna demand the most money from y'all possible, and then probably add a couple of more million per year just in case, basically as like a miserable tax. I'm gonna have to deal with this sorry team. Yeah, I'll do it, but you're gonna have to pay me extra for it. I don't think in a situation where we hire Adam Peters, we'll have to deal with anything like that. If anything, we're more likely to get team-friendly discounts on top free agent talents. Like, think of like a Brian Burns. He may take less money to come play for us and be our elite edge rusher rather than staying with the ridiculous situation situation he has going on with the Panthers, no matter how much money they offer him. Another agent said, good, bad, or ugly, Adam does it the right way. He treats people with compassion, even when it's a bad situation. He's always honest. You know where you stand. I'm surprised he has not gotten a general manager job to this point, unquote. So, hey, man, again, if you don't want to take my word for it, if you want to listen to NFL agents who know the ins and outs of the NFL, but had literally the exact bridge between a player and coaches and front office people, if you don't want to hear me, listen to them at the very least. And they love Adam Peters, so you should too. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Again, I'm super busy, so backed up on videos. That's why I'm sitting here at 4 a.m. still recording this video right now. I gotta hurry up and edit it, get it out, do the thumbnail and all that type of stuff. So stay tuned, man. I have so much content. If you're not a channel member, go ahead and become one, because once things start to die down a little, and once I finally get a little bit of free time, I'm gonna start doing film sessions on a lot of potential draft picks that we're looking at, like the top quarterbacks like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, but even like corners, offensive tackles and stuff like that. And that's gonna be exclusive to channel members only, so stay tuned. And again, I'm keeping y'all updated on every little bit of information that comes out about the Commanders. Even if it's a rumor, we're gonna dive into every little thing. So if you want a one-stop shop for all burgundy and gold news and opinions, I got y'all. Stay tuned. Catch y'all later. I'm out.